I have a bad feeling about this. You are listening to Red Mando's, a Shatterpoint podcast dedicated to scum and villainy. If you've come for polish, this is not the podcast you're looking for. We offer the raw, unadulterated take on everyone's favorite skirmish game from a galaxy far, far away. Joining me, as always, is a man who is as handy with the blaster as he is with the paintbrush, my brother in arms and fellow Mando. How have you been doing in this last week?
You know what, Red Mando 1, I am so happy to be back again for episode 2. I have been sick the last week, but
Yep.
I'm on the mend now, so I'm feeling a lot better than I was late last week. How about yourself? How are you doing?
Yeah, look, I think I caused that sickness. I think because I was sick as a dog just after the last time we recorded, and yeah, obviously recovered, but not early enough. And I think I did give it to you and some other people, perhaps, but that was just in an attempt to foil you in Mando Bowl.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although I think when you gave it to me, we didn't know that there was going to be a Mando Bowl, right? Because I didn't,
Uh,
I didn't play
oh, you
my.
hadn't played your game yet. That is
Yeah, I
true.
hadn't played my
True.
round 3. You were just preemptively, you were like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Scorched earth, it doesn't matter. Preemptively wiping out your opponent or attempting
I was
to.
gonna I was gonna mention the Israel-Palestine conflict, but I probably shouldn't. I probably should stay
Hey,
out
you
of
shouldn't.
preemptive
You
strikes
shouldn't.
on that.
We
Yeah.
should look.
We're not
You
taking
know, I,
sides.
we're barely qualified to talk about Shatterpoint. We are wholly unqualified to talk about any sort of international relations. So we're
I
gonna
do
stay
have a
away from
degree,
that.
but part of my degree was to do with international relations. So
Okay, all right. Well, maybe you're the man after all
yeah,
these years to solve.
I am. They just haven't called me up. I'm
That's
waiting,
it.
guys.
That's it. We should.
Pick up
You
the.
know what? We should start an international affairs podcast.
That's the other one. Yeah, just call it Red Mandos. No one will know what's going on. But um, anyway, this has gotten wildly out of hand, and you guys know that's what we do. Um, Cool. So, we're gonna start. We're gonna flip over that card to start, and it's gonna be our shatter pointed segment. So, what have you been doing in terms of your Shatterpoint hobby and games these last 2 weeks?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, look, I was out last week because I wasn't working, and I definitely didn't want to spread the sickness around to my fellow Shatterpoint players. So I also wasn't playing Shatterpoint in person like I otherwise try to do. So I didn't get too many games of Shatterpoint in. Um, so I did host an event at Combat Company uh, last week. Last week,
Yeah.
yeah, last week. So we sold out, and then unfortunately we had two dropouts, so I couldn't play because it was even numbers. But that was a great event. I think we had 14 people or whatever show up. Really good. Enjoyed that day. I think the games were good fun. It was interesting to see what people took.
A lot of Grand Inquisitors.
A lot of Grand Inquisitors, and I think it's because the Stormtroopers are out. So
Yeah.
you've got something to take with Vader. Either Vader 2, probably. I think Vader 1 was the more popular option, so Vader 1 with Grand Inquisitor. So it was
Yeah.
really good to see that. A lot of lists that people were saying, Inquisitorius, they're bad. And look, we I think we even said they're not fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was good to see, some new models release. It shakes up the meta. And the top player, well, look, there were two players who went undefeated. You were one of them. Well done. And then there was
Yeah.
another player who went undefeated, and yeah, he took Vader 1, Grand Inquisitor, Stormtroopers. I think he had Django and Fifth Brother.
Yeah. He did.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so he went undefeated, and it's good to see one release, and then it may unlock a box that previously people thought was pretty garbage. So that was good to
It's all
see.
it takes. It's all it
Yeah.
takes.
I did play my third round in the TTS league,
Yeah.
and I was up against Spiral, who's a strong player from Queensland, I think it is. Is it Queensland?
Yeah. He is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's from Queensland. Yeah.
He doesn't believe in daylight savings. So.
That's true. He's like, we're gonna start at 7:30, and I was like, wait, what? No, I can't do that. Oh, and they're like, no, it's 8:30. I'm all good.
Yeah,
It's fine. I
yeah,
can
yeah.
do that. Um, yeah. So I took your favorite, Obi Mace,
Love it.
um, and he took Vader Plo, Barris, Wolfpack, Arfs, and Padawan Ahsoka.
That's a
And it
strong
was,
list.
yeah, it is a strong list, and it's got lots of diceless displacement, which is something that generally Obi Mace doesn't love. But
No.
I think it wasn't as bad as I thought it might be, because if you're trying to push away Obi-Wan or you're trying to push away Mace, and they haven't activated, or there's a shadow point available, or they're in reserve, which is generally what happened. They're fast enough
Yeah,
to just get back into the action anyway, right? Like you do
that's right.
a range 3 push, even to I think I literally got pushed to the edge of the board in one activation, but Obi was able to get back into the fight. And so I had the comeback win. So I lost the first struggle and then won struggle 2, struggle 3. I did get a little bit lucky, um, as you often do, to get that comeback win with where the layout was, and then
Yeah,
in
right.
in the order deck draw. But I was happy with that. It was a good game. Spiral was a good opponent to play. He played really well. I made a few mistakes in struggle one, um, but yeah, managed to get that comeback win. So that was good. And I'm going to hand over to you before I start talking about any hobby stuff.
Well,
What?
just one thing, just before you get to that, you lost struggle one. And you said you had a big comeback win. Now, I'm guessing you weren't playing shifting priorities then, because if you struggle one on shifting priorities, it's it's almost impossible. I see it as almost impossible to come back, particularly when you're being so far displaced. What mission were you
Yeah,
playing?
yeah, for sure. I think the only mission really, unless you have some crazy ass plan, and I can't see one to be honest. Um, I think you should always be taking sabotage
Yeah.
showdown at the moment, because the way that it works, right, is when you make your team, you pick a mission, right, and then you do your roll off, and whoever wins the roll off gets to pick from their mission or the opponent's mission. And I'm like, okay, so if you win, you're going first, and I think most people consider going first to be a little bit of a disadvantage because you don't get to score in your turn, which can be a disadvantage. It could be to your advantage, right? Like if you have a plan to take 4 points on your first activation, going first is great because now it's much harder for your opponent to respond to that. So
Yeah.
it's not 100% that going first is bad, but you need to have a plan for how you handle that. I think going first, and most people would consider going first to be a disadvantage. So if you're going first, and you know it's a disadvantage in the first struggle, that puts you a little bit on the back foot on the first struggle. And if you lose the first struggle in shifting priorities, I think I won struggle 2 and 3 like once, maybe twice in shifting
Mhm.
priorities, and I don't think I was playing the strongest players when I was playing it, right? Like I was probably playing fairly new players. It was probably when we were all pretty new to the game. So what mad person goes, yeah, I'm going to give myself the disadvantage and then I'm going to give myself a huge disadvantage by picking shifting priorities? Unless you've got some mad scheme,
Yeah,
I don't see it.
I was talking to one of our fellow players from the combat company, and he suggested that when you're bringing Mace Windu, you want to have shifting priorities because Mace Windu wants to be in the middle, and the middle point's always active in shifting priorities. So you're going to get more value out of Mace Windu's squad if he's in the center, giving everyone protection and steadfast. And I think it's probably a viable idea. However, you're right. You're going first, which means you're not scoring first, which means you're already at a disadvantage. So I just don't see it as in terms of longevity. Like you don't know what's going to happen in a game. You could have the best plans, and sometimes you could just get possibly unfortunate with the deck draw, for instance. And yeah, I just think Sabotage Showdown is the better mission.
I totally agree. I think we touched on that last episode. Um,
Yeah,
Sabotage
yeah.
Showdown, yeah, you like, and this is why, right? Because if this was shifting priorities, I would just, I knew I was out after the first struggle, right? Because I'm playing a good player. I'm not playing somebody who's going to make a mistake. And that third struggle, where the player who wins the first struggle and then lost the second, gets to pick out of the two layouts, that's a huge advantage, right? And it's why a lot of the time it's hard to win 2-0, because unless they just get two bad sets of options, um, you know, usually they can pick one that's advantageous to them. And I think it's even more advantageous in shifting priorities. I feel like the layout options in struggle 2 and 3 tend to be a lot better in shifting priorities. For when you've lost the previous struggle, you're far more likely to win than in sabotage. So yeah, I think if you, unless you've got a cunning plan and you've pulled it off against a number of players and they're good players consistently, I would always stick for the time being
If
with
you
sabotage.
if you're listening to us and you have that plan and it has worked for you, just let us know. We're always more than happy to be proven wrong, and I think that's maybe, and this might sound I don't know how to say this,
We're full of
struggling for a
ourselves.
word. Yeah, but
Arrogant.
well, maybe it sounds a bit arrogant. That's right. Maybe it sounds a bit arrogant, but we're not like possibly other people who want to be told we're the best all the time. We're happy to be
Oh,
told
right.
that
Yeah.
we're
Well, that's
wrong.
the opposite. We're humble,
Yeah,
right? We're going to give you our hot take, but we're happy to be shown up. And I think that's the main thing, right? Like you present, this is life. You present your opinion, you back it up with some facts. But if somebody says, well, here's, a counterpoint that shows why you're wrong, you just change your opinion. You don't stick to it. Like, that's just dumb.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, so please, we're more than happy to be proven wrong when
Yeah.
when
Reach out.
with
Reach
it.
out.
That's right. So just let us know if you have this plan for shifting priorities and it works for you more often than not. Let us know.
All right. So what's been happening for you in the Shatterpoint world?
Oh, so before we, yeah, like you said, before we talk about hobbies, I think I don't get to play, like I said, because I live in the Outer Rim. I don't get to play as many in-person games, so it was really good to go down to the Combat Company and play my 3 games against real-life people. Because the community's great, and it's just so much fun to go down and do that. And yeah, I was lucky enough to come away with 3 wins,
Luck
which
and skill, mate. Luck and skill. Come on.
I
Come on.
don't know. I'm
Come on.
not gonna take too much credit for it. I mean, I did have the podcast off with
You
Tom.
did. This is what I mean. Like, you can't say it was all luck. Like, yeah,
I
so
think if you ask Tom, he'll say, and I agree with him. I'm not trying to take it away from me. I think he got a pretty bad hand with the draw,
yeah.
particularly struggle 2. And he played with R2D2, like he said, the inside job. He played with Boosh, and he played with Luke Skywalker. And I think a lot of the heavy lifting from his team was done by the other squad that he brought, which was Maul and Django. So I think it goes kind of to what we said in our last episode. We didn't think that the Luke box was so strong, and yeah, I mean, Boosh had a really great first activation. She was able to move on to the back point that I didn't protect. But then I just slapped a pin on her and I left her on 8 damage. So she had 1 health left and a pin, and she needed to climb to get an objective. But she was engaged with Pons by that point, so she couldn't do anything on her
Yeah.
second activation. Even with that, getting rid of the fan out, she still couldn't climb because she put an
She
attack
was
into him, I think. And
engaged.
she
Yeah.
was engaged. I think she put an attack in to try to get rid of him, but she whiffed the attack, and it was kind of yeah, it was poor all around for poor Tom there. It was really unfortunate that happened. But At the first podcast off between the Space Slugs and the Red Mandos, we managed to luckily enough get up. So obviously looking forward to that friendly rivalry developing as we continue into Shatterpoint over the years.
And we love Space Slugs. We love both Cam and Tom.
We do, we do. We're not,
Fantastic podcast as well. So you should
yeah.
definitely listen to them. Another Aussie podcast in
If you're
the
looking for
Shatterpoint.
polish, yeah, if you're definitely looking
Exactly.
for
If you're
polish,
looking for
that's them.
polish, yeah, polish and good content, listen to the Space Slugs. If
That's
you're
right.
after nonsense, listen to us.
Yeah, for sure. We're the silly guys. So I also had my third game of the TTS, the current TTS league. I think episode 3, run by the Space Slugs themselves. Um, and I played into Aaron Foss, who had his Ewoks, and I was able to test out a theory we posited in the last episode that Mace and Obi-Wan go really well into Ewoks because they have lots of little chip damage and they have lots of little pushes. And Mace and Kenobi just stood up and they were able to use hunker tokens to get themselves back onto points. And with Mace's protection around, didn't suffer a whole lot of wounds. So yeah, that was a really strong showing for Mace and Obi into the Ewoks. And I was able to get up. So we both went into round 4 of the TTS League 3-0. We were the only two undefeated into the fourth round.
That's
And
right, and that's kind of the topic of the main topic of this episode, which is the what we dubbed. Well, I think it was you because you're really the brains behind the operation.
I wouldn't say that at
You're the
all.
you're
I
the
just
heart. Sorry, no, you're the heart. So you came up with like these amazing ideas. The Mando Bowl. You dubbed it the Mando Bowl. You put together a bunch of great advertising for the Mando Bowl. But so we had the Mando Bowl just a few days ago, and we're going to break
yeah,
down that game later on in this episode.
for sure. Yes. Stick around if you want. Yeah, the really in-depth kind of way we looked at the game and what we were thinking. Because obviously, if you watch the stream, you don't really get to hear the thought process or what was happening. Obviously, we didn't commentate; it was other people. So, yeah, stick around for that. But before we get there, I guess we talk about hobbies and other things around Shatterpoint. I was going to call you by your name there.
Whoa, come on, man.
I
Keep the
almost
helmet on. Keep the helmet
keep,
on.
keep the helmet on. Don't become an apostate. All right. So tell me, what kind of hobbying have you been doing lately?
Well, so I mean, last week when I was keen to play, well, two things. I was keen at the event. I was hoping to play. I was going to be like the fifth Inquisitorius player.
Right.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I painted up the stormtroopers. I've got my Vader. I've got my fifth brother. He was already painted. I think I was gonna go either Obi-Wan or Django. Both of those are painted, and then I was like, okay, I just need to paint Grand Inquisitor. So I
Yeah.
painted him up last week, in anticipation, or the week before that, sorry, in anticipation of being able to play him both on Thursday, which I was keen to, but then I couldn't because I was already
Dying.
well, no, I was just something came up Thursday. I can't even remember what it was. So I couldn't go on Thursday. Um, and then I didn't get to play it on the weekend. But I painted him up, and I'm pretty happy with him. Looks pretty cool. Like he's a cool model, right? I do like that model. And then last week when I was sick, I wasn't fully into the painting, but I started painting up Cad Bane
Yeah.
because I'd like to throw CAD on the table a little bit more. I know a lot of people play CAD with Dooku, so I'd like to try that out. I played him once with Anakin and had a lot of fun there. Like I like Anakin, but I just don't find I'm not Tom from Space Lugs, and I haven't put in the reps with Anakin and Obi, so I don't. It's not as easy for me to put Anakin on the table with Obi and have success. Whereas when I played him with CAD, it was sort of like, hey, this works because I've got Rex who kills stuff. I've got Anakin who kills stuff. CAD wants people to kill stuff because that's how you get the Force back. And because you're getting the Force back, it was like, well, I didn't mind Anakin. He was able to, I didn't have the Force issue that you have typically When
Yeah,
you
that
put
drain.
Anakin on the table, yeah, the drain, and you're like, I don't have enough force to do what I want. So long as you're killing with CAD, you get it, and Anakin loves to kill, and he's very good at it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I painted up CAD. He's probably about. I've got him in front of me here. I reckon he's about 70% done. I
yeah.
need to do his face, and I need to do the metal parts. But otherwise, he's looking good. And then I was chatting to. Oh, look, we've potentially drawn a card, but we'll have to do our Patreon shout outs later. I was chatting to one of my good friends and one of our two patrons about Asajj, and he was like, "I'm really struggling with Asajj, painting her up." And then I was like, "Okay, I'll give her a go." And I also am kind of struggling with her a bit. It's like her cloak. It looks cool, but it doesn't make sense. Um, the way that all the folds are happening don't really make sense to me, and it kind of hurts my brain, and I'm not 100% sure how to paint it. But she's probably about 40% done, so I still need to do quite a bit of work on her. But how about you? What have you been doing hobby wise?
Nothing so in depth as the kind of the way you describe. I think I painted up. I think yeah, like you're saying, 2 weeks ago. I painted up Bo-Katan, to possibly go with a Red Mando, a list that I thought I might pivot into during that event at CanCon, which I never ended up doing. I just played Mason Kenobi for all three of my games. Um, and then last week I saw some really cool like fan art of like a redeemed Vader, with like some white armor and stuff. And I thought that is so cool. I'm gonna turn my Vader 1 into a good guy, and that way, in my own headcanon, I'll be able to run him with Republic, which I think is what he prefers to do. Um, so yeah, I did some white Vader armor and some brown Jedi robes on him, so he kind of looks more yeah, aligned with the Jedi Order. So it's not everyone's cup of tea, I get it, but I mean I'm pretty happy with it, and I mean I'm no artist like yourself, but you know it'll do. It's if it goes on the table and if you've got no glasses on, it looks alright, then it's fine.
Look, I saw both the fan art, and then like a day later you busted out the model that you'd painted, and I was like, man, that's amazing, and it looks really good. So I think it's cool. I think the whole Vader redeem thing is awesome. I know some people have this thing with Shatterpoint where they're all like, I'm only playing canon. Like they'll only play canon, and you're a little bit like that. You're like, I'll only play canon, and I'm like, the cool thing about Shatterpoint is it's got awesome minis, and the
Yeah.
rules are flexible enough so that you can do what if, right? Like you can do what if Dooku turned Obi-Wan to the dark side, right? Like he's like, look how bad the Jedi are, and Obi-Wan's like, yeah, no, I agree. I'm coming and fighting with you, right? And then you can play Dooku and Obi-Wan, or you can play Dooku and Obi-2. What if, Luke managed to save Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, and now you play Luke with Vader. Like there's cool stuff like that that you can do, and it's even better because you get to paint the minis how you want, so you can add that flavor, right? So the fan art that you had was cool, and then you've implemented that on the model, and I think it looks great. And I like seeing that. I want to see more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is always good to get people's unique takes on their characters and their art, because otherwise, we all just end up with models that look the same, and you could have like 50 people who are the most amazing, what do you call them, the
Golden
golden demon,
Demon,
golden demon painters, but if that'll
Crystal Brush, whatever you wanna, whatever prize you
there
wanna
you
say
go.
it. Yeah.
What he says, but then it all just looks the same and it's all too uniform. I think that's what's so good about, yeah, the hobby itself is that we can obviously come up with these cool, unique ways to for your characters.
Yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
Beyond painting, I'll ask you in a sec, but I want to give a huge shout out to Rich Mid from Rich Mid Gaming,
And
who is
he obviously needs the shout out from us, right? Like
we're such a big thing, and he's
that's
so
it.
small. So,
That's it.
um, he's not like probably the biggest guy for Shadowpoint on YouTube or anything. And he probably doesn't even listen, which is even
No,
better.
he wouldn't.
I'm shouting out for no reason,
It's like a
but
fan shout out. Like,
it's a fan shout out. It's like
Taylor,
if I shouted out to Kanye
Taylor.
West, like no, I'm not comparing Rich to Kanye in any way, but he must have listened to us last week because he released the tier list for primaries recently, and he had Obi-Wan Kenobi in S tier.
What
And
a legend.
I was
What a
blown
legend.
away. I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. So, Rich is in our good books. So, he's free from being targeted for a little while. But if he comes out with the tier list next week and he says he's in D, we're going to hold him to account. That's what we
That's
do.
it.
So,
That's it.
but yeah, no, Rich mid. What about yourself?
So yeah, two. So when you told me, I went and watched that, and I was like, yeah, of course. Like the things that he says about Obi-Wan are pretty much the things that we were saying. It's such a good ability, turns on in some ways Republic. Like we said, there's the Obi-Wan tax, right? So if you're not using Obi-Wan, you're paying a tax for nothing. So yeah, that was a good summary of Obi-Wan. I think some of the other ones that he had on there, I possibly quibble with some of them, particularly within the tiers, the ordering. But look, at least he had Obi-Wan right, and we're both big Obi-Wan fans.
Yeah,
Space Slugs, we love the Space Slugs, and they had their episode 3. They dropped their episode 3, which was I guess a little, where are we with the TTS league that they're running?
yeah,
And they
and
went through
Luke.
some of, well, yeah, they went through some of the stats for the TTS league, which was really interesting. And then they've both been on a little kick with Luke for the last while, where they've been trying to make Luke work. And I think basically, well, look, I mean, go and listen to it because it's a great episode. Those guys are great, but I think they kind of, I guess, and the results kind of speak for themselves. They haven't had great success with the Luke box.
Mm,
They haven't had great success with Luke even. Like altering it so that you don't necessarily take the loot box. And I think it basically echoes what we were saying before. I'm not as sold on Luke as Tom is. Like, I think Tom in the episode says he thinks Luke could be as good as Maul or close to. And I think for me, Maul has things that Luke lacks, right? Like Maul's got the movement that Luke lacks. Luke's jump is awkward in that it has to be first, whereas Maul can use his force speed whenever he likes, and then he can climb, which is probably most of the time going to be functionally equivalent to what Luke can do. There may be, there's going to be some edge cases where, first he's engaged and you need to get high, and then you need to do your full movement. Yes, there are going to be some edge cases where Luke's better, but Maul most of the time has similar kind of movement, probably more flexible movement, and then he's got the diceless displacement that Luke lacks. Now Luke does have the double tack thing, but it's not guaranteed, and that's what Maul gives
no.
you. Maul gives you that guarantee. And then the final thing is Maul has, obviously Luke has at the moment zero synergy with anybody else, and Maul has zero synergy with anybody else. But Maul actually has synergy with everyone. And why I say that is because of his, sustained by rage or whatever the ability's called, where he can cut himself instead, so he can take damage instead of using force. That works for everybody. Everybody benefits from Maul not using force, right? Whereas Luke, all he does is gives one force back and then he wants to use it every turn himself.
Yeah.
And he probably
Yep.
wants more than that because he wants to use his reactive ability. So Luke has zero synergy with anybody else, like literally zero synergy. And I think it's when they first sort of leaked his card, I was like, that's what I don't like about Luke. That lack of synergy with anybody else, I think he's going to hurt his prospects long term. And I'm not quite as sold. Look, I love the model. I love the dude. I love Luke in the Star Wars media. I'm disappointed in the character a little bit because I wish he just had a little bit more synergy so that you want to put him on the table for the things that he can bring
Yeah, no,
to
for
his
sure.
teammates. Yeah, but no, good episode. I think did you listen to that episode as well, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and any other thoughts that you'd like to put out
Just
there?
in terms of you're talking about Luke, I think, and with no synergy, I think he really probably wants someone who can give him some force back so he can do the stuff he wants. And I think Cad's probably not a bad way to do that. I think the other thing that Luke and Cad both do is they ask your opponent to move off a point. And if you're playing someone who might be a little bit indecisive, they might get off the point for you, making it easier for you to jump on, and maybe you don't need to take an attack. Or they don't get off the point, and then you are likely to wound something, which is going to give you force back. So both of those units, Cad Bane and Luke Skywalker, have abilities to kind of mess with your opponent, give them a choice in your turn, which is going to be bad for them either way. And I really like that they both bring that.
Yeah, no,
It's not
that's a great point. Great point.
it's not necessarily diceless displacement. It can be if they do choose to move off. Now, Cad might be getting an expose on someone and might be able to finish them off. I really also like in that squad if you're bringing Luke and Cad, and I know that Cam mentioned he really wanted to run that together. I think you need to drop Cad's box and Luke's box, the rest of them. I think at the moment the only thing I can think of is running Luke with the Stormtroopers, just because they're going to be dealing more damage than the rest of Luke's box. So you're going to get some more consistent force back. Also, Stormtrooper Sergeant doesn't really want to spend force, so you're kind of saving it there. And the Stormtroopers, they can spend some force, but they don't really necessarily have to if you're just going to go and take a point. If you're force starved, they don't really need it. I think you bring Django and the Red Mandos. And the Red Mandos are really good at murdering things and talking shit about other podcasts. That's what they do. That's what they that's what they
That's it.
specialize
That's
in.
it. That's it.
That's
No,
it.
like I think that's really good. I'm sure I'm sure Cam is going to listen to us, or at least Tom will, and then he'll tell
And
Cam.
pass it on to Cam.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
passes
and
it on to Cam. Yeah.
I think like,
So
if Django murders a primary, you're getting
that's
what,
so
four
much
force
force.
back?
Yeah, that's so much horseback. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's two from him, two from Cad. I think Cad also just paying a force to chip in 2 damage when someone else is getting close to wounding something. So you're gonna have some more consistency in getting wounds off, getting force back, and then Luke gets to do what he wants to be able to move around, push people off, and then jump back onto points. Um, I don't think it's a bad list, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to be proven wrong.
No. I think it's an interesting list. For sure, it's an interesting list.
Luke just
And
needs better units than and I haven't like than the stormtroopers to work with them. I
yeah,
think
I agree. I think an interesting thing would be is it like you're basically saying Stormtrooper Sergeant is doing nothing in that list, right? Like
well he's moving the stormtroopers around. That's what he's there
that's
for.
true. Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. Because I was gonna
Um
say, could you consider just because it's ridiculous, just throw the trappers in, just throw the Ewok
oh
trappers in, just
oh
because
because you want the trap card.
the trap
Yeah,
card's
okay.
fucking amazing, right? Like you just
You
like who cares,
but then you have
right?
to bring because they're 4 points though.
I know. So it's Stormtrooper Sergeant and the
The
trappers.
trappers.
Right, like
Yeah, fuck it.
obviously you don't get the
Why don't
extra
we?
movement. You don't get the extra movement from Stormtrooper Sergeant on the Stormtroopers, but you do get stealthy approach still, right? And you get that trap card, and that trap card is so fucking good. Like it's
The
so good.
it's insane. The other thing I thought of was you could run instead of the stormtroopers themselves, you could bring the sergeant and fifth brother.
Yeah. That could work. That could work.
Um,
Fifth Feather
I
is good.
think I think when it comes out in about a month, you might be able to run Grief Karga and IG-11 because they'll be bounty hunters surely, and they'll synergize better with Cat.
Yeah, it'll
And
just be
if
the
Mando is
point.
7 squad points, yeah, if
Yeah.
he is 7.
Well, 7 is the
Um,
new 8, right? 7 is the new 8.
well, look, I expect him to be 7. I think I think Grief Karga will probably be 3. Um, I think Grogu will have some sort of effect on his card, where he'll be able to have like some sort of force throw or something, or some sort of force protection from Grogu. That's what my speculation is. Complete
I mean, yeah,
speculation.
like we have zero inside knowledge here. It's just
I
absolute
wish
nonsense.
if I had inside knowledge,
I
I'd
know
fucking
it'd be
sell
so
it.
good.
I'd
It's
make
so
money
good,
from
but we don't. We're just speculating madly
complete
here.
speculation. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's good. That's good. And look, the one last one that I'm going to throw out there is the Gamers Guild. So they have a MCP podcast, and then they had some Shatterpoint episodes thrown in there, and they've now split the Shatterpoint stuff out into its own podcast, which is great. So
Nice.
you can just look for that. And what they did recently is they, I guess, did a pretty good summary of, you know, Premiere format list construction. You know, there's a couple of different approaches that you can take. They go into those. That was a good, you know, a good episode for that. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, go check those guys out as well. And they're the only two podcasts. Look, I listened to our episode 1 just to get those numbers up there. Right? Like if you've got,
Yeah.
you know, if you've got nothing better to do, just put us on a loop on Spotify.
It's all right. If you've got a Bitcoin miner, just put them while you're mining your Bitcoin. Just stick it on to our podcast as well, because may as well. Cool. I think
Awesome.
that's everything we wanted to talk about in terms
Yeah.
of
I
the.
mean, it's been a while. Like that was a lot.
It's a lot. It's definitely been a lot.
But that was good.
Are we now getting to? Are we
Let's
flipping
do it.
the?
Let's do
But
it, man.
before that, I think, because we like to flip random cards. I think we flipped the thank the Patreon members card.
Oh yes, look, it, we have got 2 patrons, and they're
Incredibly, I don't know how.
incredibly. I mean, like, yeah, exactly. They're just mad lads. I think that they look. Both of them know us, so it's kind of like we're begging for money from our friends, which is a bit uncomfortable.
Particularly when one of us has a brand new Tesla. Not saying who, not doxing anyone.
At least it's the right color, right?
It's
You
the
know,
right color. It is the
yeah,
right color.
it is the right color. Um, but yeah, so we have 2 patrons. So Ku, he was. Oh, I should have started with JB. JB is our first patron. So
Well, you're
thank you,
building up to it. You
JB.
always announce second before you announce first, right?
Well, no, I didn't do it that way on the weekend. Everybody got upset with me. So I don't know, man. I don't know which is the way, but I'm gonna say JB. Thank you, mate, for supporting us. Um, you're a legend. You still haven't joined the Discord, but you know we're waiting for you when you do join.
He doesn't need it. He's too good. He's
That's
like,
it.
"Alright."
He's because he's got that one-on-one connection, even
He
though
gets
he's
a
not
phone
paying.
call.
Exactly, he gets a phone call even though he's not paying for it.
He gets a
Um,
private game every week.
that's it. That's it. But yeah, JB, thank you. And Ku is our second. You are another mad lad, but thank you for the support. And if you are crazy like these 2 guys and you have more money than sense, you can find us on Patreon and give us money, but you probably shouldn't, and we don't really
If you're actually gonna,
want it or expect it.
you might want to say what the Patreon is called, what the name of it is. That's
Mando's
something you
cast,
want.
mate. Come on. Look, you know, this is not the quality. You're
No,
expecting us to be high quality here, bro.
you're trying to sell yourself. Remember, you gotta
That's
actually.
it. That's it. Look,
Yeah.
what is it? It's Red Mando's cast. I'm sure we have a link somewhere on Spotify.
It'll be in the Spotify description
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. Exactly.
We don't know enough.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
don't know.
Good. Awesome. Good. We've done that. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
We do. We actually do.
All right. That's it. This is it. This is it. The main
Main event.
topic. The main event. The pay-per-view.
The
So yes,
pay-per-view as a
as Red Mando one alluded to previously, going into the Space Slugs present Oceania Episode 3 Shatterpoint TTS League. Going into round 4, both of us were undefeated at the top, where the Red Mando should be. And so then we had to face each other in the
yes.
4th round. So, Red Mando 1, you put together, as I said, some amazing images. It was, what was it? Stronger Together.
forced
Yeah.
apart.
Stronger Together,
Yep.
Forced Apart. I love it. I love it, man. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
But yes, so we, you know, I think both of us, like, we like to play well, right? Like, we like to, I think, I guess we take the game seriously, when we're playing. We like to have fun, obviously, particularly when we're playing mates. But we want to put a decent showing in. Um, and there was another aspect which was that it was being streamed, right? So Space
Yeah.
Slugs, they streamed it, so you can on the Space Slugs YouTube or Twitch, you can go and see the game.
Yeah, if you
Um,
have like when you between the ad breaks of Married at First Sight, um, just watch it because it's very short game. It's not a very long game. It's quite quick.
yeah, it is quick. It is quick, but so they were streaming it. So we were considering like, what are we doing here now? You are, I would say, almost the authority on Obi Mace.
Oh, not by a long shot. Not by a long shot.
I think you're downplaying it, but look, so you were Obi Mace pretty like they're your locked in squad, right? Like if you've got the opportunity, you're gonna take them.
Oh, generally, look, it depends on who my opponent is. Like, so for instance, I played Wreath in the second game of the TTS League, and I had come up against him at CanCon, and he had mauled my Obi Mace. Um, and he was my one loss at CanCon, and so playing him, I knew he was going to go heavy into the attrition, and so I pivoted into a little bit of a different list that I thought might um, work better into the type of list he brings, and so yeah, I do generally stick to Obi Mace, but when I see my opponent has something that is probably going to be detrimental to me, I do like to pivot.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think so. What we initially thought was let's do Obi Mace mirror match
Hmm.
because I played that in the TTS League in the previous week, and we thought it might be funny to do the mirror match. But then, I mean, we did discuss: is it going to be not funny? Is it going to be a bit boring? And then
Boring and
when
yeah, I
we
felt my concern
social,
was sorry, just one
yeah,
sec there. My concern was that it was going to come down to like just simply dice because we're both not shit players. We both know what we're doing, and so my biggest concern was one of us is going to lose based solely on dice
dice
and
or
raw.
order deck
Yeah,
or you know
it wasn't going to be on skill. It wasn't going to be on who was actually the better player. It
all
was
the
simply
objectives or
yeah,
so
it was
all the
simply going
random
to be
elements were
yeah,
gonna
that's right.
play too big a part. Yeah, and when we socialize it, people will sort of say, "Oh, that's not going to be the greatest for people to watch." So then
Yeah,
we went back, and look, we weren't trying to like engineer a result or anything. It wasn't like we were saying you're going to win because we want you to win or anything like that. We were just trying to have a match where it would be interesting or fun, mostly fun to watch, right? So if
yeah, yeah,
if you watch the stream, we the guys that commentated on it, so Tom and another mate of ours, Jeff, commentated on it, and they didn't even mention it, but we do have a little at the start. Vader comes in and Mace comes in, and we make the little models kiss. So like we were trying to, we were trying to
And
like add a,
I tried to put the trap card in your deck, but you
that's
saw me
it.
do
Yeah,
that. Yep.
exactly. Right. So there were
Yeah.
little things that we were doing that were, just trying to make it a little bit fun because that's what you do when you're playing with your mates. Um, but so we went back and we thought, what else could we do? And we thought of some other lists that I like. But then Gideon basically dropped the day before the
Yeah.
game, and we thought let's just throw Gideon on because it'll be funny on stream to like basically go in raw with Gideon. I've never played him. I've looked at his card a little bit. Let's go in with Gideon. But I think in doing that, what we did was basically because we agreed beforehand, right? Like it wasn't like we tried to go, I know you're doing this and I'm going to counterpick. But what we did was we sort of discussed what lists we might take, and we developed a list with Gideon in it. And I think we kind of
Yeah, we developed the strongest list together. We
yeah
developed the strongest
yeah
list we
yeah
could think of with Gideon in it. Yeah.
and then it kind of was the list that was tailor made to take out Obi Mace.
I engineered my own destruction
Yeah,
is
yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm saying.
You
Yeah.
definitely played a strong hand in your own destruction. So let's talk about the list.
Yeah.
So and probably we need to talk about Gideon because he's fairly new. So
Sure.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring up his card so I can see him here. So he's what, like eight, 8 and 3. He's an Empire, Galactic Empire. He gets like a dash, so he can dash. He's basically got Dooku's ability, but for Empire models. So you pick
And
another
it's a
unit.
larger range.
Yeah, that's true. It's within 4, not 3. And then he gets a dash, and then that model gets a dash. He can move a supporting unit a full reposition. One character in the unit can reposition, but then they suffer 2 damage. And then weirdly, if they get wounded by that 2 damage, you remove the wounded token, all the damage, one condition, and then give them an injured token. So basically, you kind of turn them. They're alive, and then but they're basically dead, and then you give them a full reposition, and then they suffer the 2 damage, and you turn them injured, but they removed all the damage and one condition. So that's kind of quite interesting. It does still give a momentum to your opponent, but it's an interesting ability. And then I think a big one on his card is assume that I know everything, which is when an opposing player would spend force, place a unit's order card in reserve, they must spend 1 additional force. That's pretty huge.
Big.
Like, you know, you're doubling the cost of reserving, and a lot of the time that's like a third of your opponent's force reserves to reserve a unit. It's something that they may still consider in the first struggle, but second and third struggle, when you are often going to be fishing for, I need a unit that can get to the priority point right now. Assume that I know everything is going to be a big factor in that.
Yeah,
It's going to really
particularly
hamper.
particularly for Elizabeth Obi-Wan, who Obi-Wan definitely wants to go in reserve. Like, so if you've got someone else there and then he wants to do it, you're gonna spend at least three
No.
force.
No, that's not true. So the first time somebody goes into reserve, it's going to cost 2, but patience doesn't trigger this.
Are you sure? Because it says when a unit
Yes.
is put in reserve.
No, it doesn't. It says when an opposing player would spend force to place a unit's order card in reserve, and patience
Ah.
doesn't cost the force.
Well, yeah,
So
okay, fair enough.
yeah, so the first character going in costs 2, but like if you
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to reserve Obi-Wan and get the second half of patience, which is the 3 heals and a jump, that still costs you a force. So then this triggers and it costs you 2.
Yeah, gotcha.
But
Understood.
yeah, it does really hamper Obi-Wan, because exactly like you say, Obi-Wan wants to either put somebody else in reserve, then go into reserve himself, put them at the bottom or the top, or he just wants to go into reserve for himself to get an extra movement. And before, you're like, that's fine, because a lot of the time, a jump would cost a movement. Sorry, a jump would cost a force, and you're like, that's fine. I put him in reserve. I get a jump. I get 3 heals. It's a bargain. Um, but now it's not a bargain. It's costing twice as much. So I
Yeah,
think
no, no,
that's a
fair
really
enough.
strong ability. And then the last one he has is his identity ability. It's 2 things. If a Galactic Empire character performs a melee attack as part of a combat action, if the defender is contesting an active objective you do not control, add 1 die to the attack roll. So basically, if somebody else has an objective already, they own it, and then you move an Empire model on, and then you melee the character that's on that active objective, you get an extra dice. Which I know Rich Mid did a summary of Gideon, and he was like, "Yeah, this ability is kind of meh." And I'm like, "Is it really though?" Because I
It's a
really
free
don't think.
focus.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, it's so good. Because a lot of the time, this is what happens, right? Like, somebody has an objective, you're moving a character onto it, and you want to kill the opponent's model that's there, right? This is a free focus, but it's not, because you can focus on top of it and get 2 dice, right? You think Vader 1's ability is take 2 damage to get 3 dice. This is get 1 for free, and you can combine those 2. So now you're getting 4 dice. I think this ability is huge. I think it's so good. What do you
I
think,
like it.
Mando One?
No, well, yeah, obviously, because you're looking at then increasing your dice efficiency or your tree efficiency there, and particularly going into if you're going into supports, um, getting that higher damage through, yeah, you're obviously gonna see a lot more success, even just with one dice.
Yeah, and I think the thing to the way that I look at it is some models help you when you're already winning, right? Like I think
Luminara.
Luminara is a good example, right? When you're already wounding somebody, you're like, oh, cool, I now also get to move a model. Great, I'm winning more from your ability. What this does, though, is it helps you on the comeback, right? So when you've lost the first struggle and you're on the back foot, or somebody has taken the points from you and you're like, oh, crap, man, I need to get those points back. This ability helps you do that, right? It helps you play the game of Shatterpoint better. So I think it's great. And then we haven't even touched on the second half of his identity ability, which is basically on a primary inquisitorial mandate. Boom, there you go. Grand Inquisitor, don't you feel sad? You're not Moff Gideon.
Seriously, if you want to play Grand Inquisitor, if you like his model, just take Moff Gideon's card. Just swap the cards out
That's funny. That's funny.
because he has the Inquisitorial mandate that he wants. He throws more than just 4 dice in ranged. Yeah, Moff Gideon's no slouch. I think the concern a lot of people had was he's going to be a bit weak and he's going to be a bit easy to take out. But he's maxing out there on one of his side, his melee side of his card on 11 damage. That's pretty big. 11 damage is a lot. That's nothing to scoff
Yeah,
at.
and,
So
and and on that side, he's also got 6 defense dice, right? So
that's incredible.
yeah, his defensive expertise is not great. Admittedly, it's not great, but he does
Six
have
dice.
6 dice, and 6 dice is nothing to scoff at, right? Like, in the game, I think on one of the attacks I rolled 5 blocks when he was exposed. Now, obviously, that's a bit lucky, but if you've only got 5, it's even harder to do that, right? Or if so I think yes, potentially he can get bullied. He has no way of getting back onto a point through his expertise. It's harder for him to turn off crits. If you're turning off crits, you're rolling 3 or 4 expertise, which probably hurts you anyway. But he does have 10 stamina, so he's not like he doesn't fold immediately. He's not one of these 9 stamina primaries.
Yeah, no, he's definitely quite decent, and I think he's going to be strong unit for Empire going forward. I think he turns on Vader's. We haven't even seen the rest of his box, Moff Gideon's box, but he turns on Vader too already. He gives you that second Imperial primary that is really gonna go strong into any Empire list you're building.
For sure, for sure. Like that was the problem, right? When you Vader 2, that's what we were saying last episode. The Vader 2 box right now, like there wasn't
Had nothing.
really, yeah, it wasn't like you had to buy that because it turned on something else. It was waiting for another box, right? And really what it
Yes.
was waiting for was Moff Gideon. Because with Moff Gideon, you can now take Vader 2 and you know, Moff Gideon can move Vader with smug determination at the start of his activation if he's within 4. It really does turn on more synergy with Vader 2. Vader 2 uses his little dash for 3 extra dice. Most of the time it's now going to be 4 extra dice. Right? 4 extra dice is huge. Yes, of course, you're 95, 99% likely to get the expose at the end of it, but whatever. You're killing something most likely when you need to. So for sure, you're 100% right that Moff Gideon is turning on the Vader 2 box in the way that
Yeah,
Grand Inquisitor didn't, because Grand Inquisitor wasn't Empire focused; he was Inquisitorius focused.
that's right, and I think that's a really important distinction, and I think that yeah, he's just good. That's all we really need to say about him. He's just good.
Yeah, so let's talk about the rest of the list that we came up with, which was so I took Vader 1, right? Because I looked at you have something I want, and I'm like, oh, cool, melee attack extra dice, Vader 1, melee attack extra dice. Let's just lean into that as hard as we can so that we potentially got 4 extra dice on the table in melee attacks. So Vader 1 gives you that. We then took Stormtrooper Sergeant with Vader 1, and you could put um, Stormtroopers with Vader 1, but what we looked at was Fifth Brother. There's two things. So Fifth Brother has an expose for Vader 1 only, right? He can't expose
Yeah,
for Moff Gideon because Moff Gideon's not Inquisitorius, whereas Vader 1 is Inquisitorius. So that's one reason to put Fifth Brother with Vader 1. And the other one, which Jeff came discuss with us because Jeff had a very quick sneaky game with Moff Gideon before we played, which was that Moff Gideon effectively has Inquisitorial Mandate. So there's no point in putting Fifth Brother on that side because Fifth Brother also has Inquisitorial Mandate. You get so much more utility from Inquisitorial Mandate by putting it on the other side of the table. So
that's right. Yeah.
for those two reasons, put Fifth Brother with Vader 1. So now you've got Moff Gideon. So you don't have tons of options at the moment, but Moff Gideon, Obi-2, and Stormtroopers. That kind of the box at the moment, that kind of squad builds itself. Right? So
Yeah, I think Obi-2 is probably the unsuspecting one there. I think people might mistakenly look for Reva.
I mean,
Don't
but
do it.
Reva's garbage, right?
Yeah,
Like
don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Reva is
Obi-2 goes in any squad.
yeah. Obi-2 can flex into any non-galactic, I think, into non-galactic Republic squad, right? Because Galactic Republic squad, yes, he can fit there if you're not taking Obi-Wan, but you have to make that decision as to whether or not you take Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And Galactic Republic have a lot of good secondaries, right? Whereas Empire at the moment do not.
Correct. Yes. But Empire have really good supports, which I think maybe the Galactic Republic
They don't have. Yeah,
feel
they
they
don't
feel.
have.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's true.
ARFs are good, but you take the expose off the ARFs, and then you don't want them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're
You
taking
you
them
take
for the expose.
you take the scale off the commandos, and you don't want them.
Oh no, the
Like
commandos are like 6 health. Yes, they have protection, but that basically just puts them at the same health as every other
7.
clone. Yeah.
That's right, yeah, and they get like 3 expertise on that defensive tree, and it's like instead of getting 2, you get 1 and a reposition. It's like, but I'm with Kenobi, I kind of get that anyway. Can I please
Yeah.
have an extra defense? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So it
They
feels a bit bad.
it does feel a bit bad. But yeah, so that's the list that we put together, and then we plopped it on the table, and you were taking Mace and Obi. So obviously the Mace box builds itself, right? Like you have to basically
You
put the
have
Mace
to.
box
Yep.
down as is. Obi, you always want Rex because he's a champ.
Yeah, and
And
then it's a
well,
choice really, but I think the clone commandos go better with Obi just because they have scale, and with those hunkers, if you're being pushed off an objective that's high, they can scale back on if they're dropping the hunker. So I think that's why you want them there. I mean, other people are going to tell me differently,
no, I
and they're
agree. I
probably going
think for with Obi, the flexibility that scale provides and dropping the hunker, it's huge. It's it's going to be better than pretty much any other argument that people might make.
yeah, that's right. And that's the only reason you really kind of want to bring them. The rest of the clones, they're not superb in any way. It's just the flavor you kind of want. So if you want more pins, you might go with something like the 212, which you probably should never bring them anywhere. Um, you know,
And why we say that is really the 212. It's their defensive dice, right?
get 3 in
Yeah,
melee.
it's
It's
so
pretty
bad.
average. It's pretty average.
When you're
But well, not average.
facing
Average means bad. Yes.
no, it's below. It's way below average. 3 is terrible, man. Like, is there
No, no. I
any
think
other unit? Oh, I think droids. They're as bad as
yeah.
yeah. B1
Yeah.
battle droids in
Which
Melee,
have
right?
9 health and
Yeah,
protection if they're on a point.
yeah.
So it just makes no sense to me that I mean, yeah, you say that they pay the Obi tax, but the Obi tax is super easy to get around once you throw 4 dice at things. Or
Yeah,
extra dice, I should
four
say.
extra
Sorry.
dice, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
basically, I think, what happened, right? Is that um, your list is designed to handle chip damage. It's designed to handle um, attack-based
It
shoves.
can handle 6 damage. It can't handle anything more than 6
Yeah,
damage.
that's true. Yeah, it can handle up to 6 damage, right? Because yeah, that's when you don't die. You can get back on the point. You can drop the hunkers to heal, and like my personal opinion was that the dice just, um, which happens, right? Like it happens in dice-based games. We're not playing chess, right? Chess is, if you're in that position, I eat you if I can. That's not
Yep.
how this works. This works. There's always that random element. But what the Moff Gideon and Vader One list brought was, let's add 4 extra dice, and 4 extra dice is a lot, right? Like if you consider, I don't know, like even if you consider Moff Gideon, right, and you're like melee attack dice is 7, let's bump that to 11. That's more than 50% extra dice that he gets for 2 dice.
I'd just like to point out that you also brought Obi-2, right? And particularly Obi-2 is quite strong into a Republic list because the Jedi, they don't have range attack. So
Yes.
they're going to be making suboptimal choices. And they're going to I tried to think about, during the game even, like sometimes you can play a mind game with your opponent to say, I'm going to attack this guy. Then Obi-Wan triggers his mind trick, and then you get to attack the target that you really wanted. But I don't think I was in a position where I ever really wanted that. Didn't get
No.
that because I had no great targets. And in some instances, because of Obi-Wan, I was only throwing 5 dice at you. So you were throwing 4 extra dice at me, and I was only throwing 5 dice at you. And that's a huge swing of dice.
It is. It
That's
is.
yeah.
I mean, I think your dice were terrible, right? Like
I'm
I
not gonna say
noticed.
that.
Yeah, well, okay, that's fine because I know you don't want to blame the dice, but I'm gonna say I was playing obviously, and I felt your dice were bad because it felt like you rolled 50% blocks almost every roll. Um, and
50%
even Tom,
fails, I think you meant.
yeah, sorry, 50% fails. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Almost every role, and even Tom and Jeff, who were commentating it, sort of mentioned how bad your dice were. So the dice definitely weren't in your favor. But what this Vader One and Gideon thing did was, that those 4 extra dice was just, it was so big, right? Like it's even on Vader, it's more than 50% extra dice. And he has a really good tree with a lot of damage that he can push out. So your dice weren't great, and then this list was basically designed to kill your list, which, as you said previously, the Mason Obi is not fantastic into really strong attrition,
Yeah.
and this seemed to be really strong attrition. So maybe you might have some people claiming, "Oh my God, this is the new broken list. Nobody can beat it." But I think that gets on to another point that we were chatting about before, which is kind of like the rock paper scissors kind of thing. Um, or if you're familiar with like Pokemon, you've got, fire is strong against grass, but grass is good against water, and water's good against fire. So you've got like these sort of strength and weaknesses. And I think one of the things about Shatterpoint is that's not in the card, right? Like if you look at, what is it, Charizard or whatever, you're like, oh, he's fire type. He's going to be good against grass and he's going to be weak against water. That's very easy for you to grok that in your head just by looking at his card. Whereas
Yeah.
in Shatterpoint, you kind of have to have some experience with the game, with the multitude of units that you can take. and then you go, okay, Mason Obi is really good against this, but it's not great against attrition. What would be good against attrition? Well, now you look at the units like Dooku, or you look at Towson, who have those reactive punish type abilities. When you wound me, I get to do all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, or just bring dark side models because they seem to have a higher health pool.
That's true. Yeah, it's a weird thing. But you said before when you were playing Wreath, you brought something else because you knew he tends to go attrition heavy. So
Yeah,
I think that was Ewoks, wasn't it?
I did throw Ewoks at him because they just have so much. So low grade gives. We talked about this obviously, but yeah, low grade gives the Ewok so much. So no matter what he's murdering, I'm still getting something out of my units. I'm moving. I'm still being able to attack. I'm still gonna be a pain somewhere on the field, where it kind of lessens that effect. The other thing that you had that made it really hard for me to take any points was that the two instances of inquisitorial mandate on either side of the board, and one was protected by Kenobi. So I really struggled to take points back when you took them, um, particularly because you had decimated my supports with your first two activations, I think, and then
First,
I
first three, I think, because my first one was Stormtrooper Sergeant, who just went wee.
Sorry, my mistake. You're right. Yeah. Your first two effective activations
Yes, yes.
were to effectively, yeah, neuter my ability to take points back off you because I was only going to be able to get one guy up at a time, and then you were just going to quite easily just foil me where I was because you just had the inquisitorial mandate and I just couldn't take anything back. And obviously, yeah, two instances of it on opposite sides of the board. I just couldn't take points back
Yeah,
um,
and I
quick
think,
enough.
yeah, I agree. I think, and it's a good point, and you know, people could do that previously, right? Like they could take um, what's her name, fourth sister and fifth brother.
Yeah,
But I think the weakness in doing that is that you've yes, you have two models with inquisitorial mandate, but you're also down two models, right? Because both fifth brother and fourth sister are single
yeah,
character support units. Putting effectively inquisitorial mandate on a primary is so huge, right? Because yeah, for a lot of the game, I basically had Moff Gideon on one point, and then I had a stormtrooper there, and the other stormtrooper couldn't get up, but it kind of didn't matter. He could move around, he could get into good positions, he could shoot stuff. Whereas if I had fourth sister there, it wouldn't have been nearly as effective, right? Because one, I've only got one model. I'm only throwing one set of attack dice when I do attack. So, and their dice are not that much more than two single attacks kind of thing. So I think Moff Gideon is going to really shake things up again because he does have that inquisitorial mandate on a primary unit, and yes, he's not as tanky as a lot of other primary units, but he's still pretty tanky, right? Like 10 stamina, 6 or 5 defense dice. His expertise is okay. I think he's going to be really interesting. And I mean, I guess another, last episode we were talking about Republic. They're making a resurgence.
nope. Back down. Get back in your box, Republic.
But that's the great thing, right? Like, so now you've got, well, maybe you go in your when you're building your Premiere list, you go, well, I want an attrition focused list, but what's attrition weak against? Okay, it's weak against something like Ewoks where they get, or maybe potentially even droids where they go, I don't care if I'm dead because I get to make 5 or 6 dice attack even if I am dead, and I'm moving on so that when I come back alive, I'm on the point. And if I'm dead, you can't. Who cares? You can't wound me any further, right? So maybe that kind of swarm list attrition is actually
Yeah.
weak against the swarm list. But then what's the
Well,
Swarm list weak against? It's weak against a control, like a list like Obi-Wan and Mace, where I can move back onto the point. You can't do enough chip damage to get through, or you can, but it takes you 3 or 4 activations to wound a model. And then we haven't even thrown in the more reactive type, lists like
Dooku Mother.
Dooku, Mother, where they're like, well, you wound me and then I dash and I move you off, or I dash up, I bring somebody else with me, I attack, I push you back off the point. Like, I think it's really good for the health of Shatterpoint as a game to have all these different styles of lists that all interact with each other, that have strengths and weaknesses against each other. And potentially you can combine those, right? Like, so I know we've been discussing a list that I was, playing around with, which is basically Obi-Wan and a whole bunch of Republic, but I bring in Towson as the second primary, because she has that annoying ability to do the clapback. And so you've got so much flexibility to build different types of lists, and I think it's really good for the health of the game.
100%. Yeah, there's no one list that's going to dominate anything else. And I think a lot of people will tell you all this doom and gloom, and maybe Gideon's going to fall into that doom and gloom. I know people fell victim to the Vader doom and gloom and the Ewok doom and gloom. It just doesn't exist. You can counter any list, and that's the beauty of this game. Like they're designing it in such a way that there is going to be no big bad because there's always going to be a way to counter that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think a Republic list into Moff Gideon would probably be Poe with Barris in some way, um,
Yep.
just some diceless displacement, just to get rid of those I can't even speak, for those inquisitorial units where, okay, so you're Canis 2, but great, Canis 2 doing something
Over
like
there.
redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Counters
So
two, three, range 3 over that way. Doesn't
that's
matter
right.
anymore. It doesn't matter. And that gets back to that point that I was saying before, is like you don't want to lean too heavily into this, right? Like, I don't think you want to take Gideon, fifth brother, and fourth sister. It's too much. You want to have bodies on points to give you some of that redundancy, so that when you do come up against, you know, a displacement list, you're not just, oh crap, my model's just got displaced, I've lost.
Yeah, no, that's right. And so I think there's a range of things you can do to kind of counter that, and that's why I think Premier list building is such a puzzle because you can't just have, okay, I want Vader 1, I want Maul, I want Gideon, and I'm gonna pick something else that's super heavy attrition just to murder people because all of those things are not gonna work. You're gonna come up against lists that you just simply cannot beat. Like, you're going to lose before dice are even thrown because well, you're going to be in a position to
You're going to
lose before
be
dice.
like, yeah, you're going to be seriously behind the 8 ball before, like, you're really going to be struggling because you've got no answer to what your opponent's bringing.
Yeah, and I think we didn't really, I didn't personally consider the fact that yeah, I was going into a game that I was going to need to rely on a lot of luck to win.
Yeah, I think
With
that was probably the thing. Like, because in the end, it was a really fast game, and it was brutal, and your dice weren't great, and my dice were pretty good, or average to pretty good, and your dice were sort of average to bad, and it ended really quickly. Um, I know from, because I watched the commentary, there was sort of some things. Oh, mistake made here, mistake made there. There were a couple. Um, I think the big one was kind of not moving Mace down on the shatter point when you had the opportunity, because Mace is a tanky model, right? So
my thought,
Vader. Oh yeah, yeah. I think you were going for the Hail Mary.
I needed to. The game, I had kind of realized the game was over by that point. I know it was only struggled one, but I just wasn't putting enough dice. I think I did 6 damage to you all game.
Yeah, they
It's
did say that. Like, all the damage on my side was basically self-inflicted.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think you took obviously more. You did more damage to you than I did. So, um, the game I had kind of thought I need something drastic here, and Jeff once gave me advice, and he probably forgets it now, but Jeff said you need to win struggle one no matter what it costs you.
Right.
That was his advice to me once, and it makes sense because you put yourself in a 66% position to win the game overall if you win struggle one,
Yeah,
right?
for
'Cause
sure, for
then,
sure.
so activating the ARFs, I thought, okay, I need one push on Obi-Wan, which is two on their tree. It should happen. So one push
Across
on
two
Obi-Wan,
attacks, yeah. Across two
across to
attacks,
attack.
you'd hope it, yeah.
So one push on Obi-Wan, and then
Although
yeah,
Obi-Wan turns off one of them.
Obi-Wan turned off one, and I made a 5 dice attack against somebody. It didn't a stormtrooper, I
Stormtroopers
think.
and did nothing, yeah.
And did absolutely nothing. And then I shot into Obi-Wan and got one result through. So I thought, yeah, because then I would have had a 4 point swing. I would have scored 4 points on that turn, and you would have had Vader. You had Vader left, I think, is all you
Yeah, I
had.
had Vader left.
And so I was resigned to the fact, yeah, you're gonna win that back point, but at least I still have three, and that's gonna give me parity. That's gonna put me in a position where I could possibly win the struggle still. But them completely failing only scored me two. So it was a huge not
Yeah,
swing.
it was a, and also I guess you suffered all the negatives of what you were attempting to do.
Yeah, I got none of the like. I thought one push on Kenobi should have happened. I think statistically, I think there's probably a higher than a 50% chance of that happening.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't have time to work out all the maths in my head, but I just thought I know that Mace would have just walked down and sat on that point, but that would have only got me three, and then Vader was next anyway, and he was probably just gonna push Mace off the point. Mace didn't
Yeah,
have.
I think that's the thing. I don't think he could have pushed Mace off the point because Mace would have had two dashes, right? He would have had two dashes and then an advance, and he could have blocked himself in behind the barrels where Vader just couldn't do anything because Vader could only get one push
Well, then
through.
my concern was that you were putting so much damage out on every single, like, you one shot pretty much every. You only did one attack that didn't one
Yeah,
melee attack
yeah.
that didn't outright kill a character, and that was into fifth brother into Pons when Pons had one health left
Two
and
health left
fifth.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and he completely whipped, which was fortunate, but just kind of delayed the inevitable. Where I thought, yeah, Mace walks down there, yeah, he gets the point, but what's he really doing? I just thought Vader's probably gonna murder him anyways, rolling 4 extra dice. Um,
Yeah,
I know
I
Mace
think
could have.
Mace. Yeah, I don't have any exposed, so I think Mace would have held up pretty well to that. But yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, I think I was just obviously in a, I mean, tilt happens, and I was just really in that negative zone where it's like, I'm just gonna die. There's no point moving Mace because he's just gonna die. And I
Yeah,
thought better
yeah,
better
that's
have
fair.
the Arts die than Mace, because when the Arts die and I get pull them off the table, I get Mace more often, right?
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
the
that's
units I
fair.
want
That's
more
fair.
often, and
That's fair.
it obviously didn't work out the way that I had hoped.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that was literally the only actual. I guess maybe it's fine to play that half play, but maybe when it doesn't go off, you still had the movement, and maybe you just go, "This struggle's gone, but I don't want to lose the halves." So you just move, like, just leave that my rear point and just go halves go into the middle, hoping for the middle to become active in struggle two, right? So that you're not suffering all the negatives of that play. You didn't get, you went for the Hail Mary, you didn't get it, so you go, well, I didn't get the Hail Mary, I can't get the 4 points, I'm not going to lose the arse over that, I'm going to save the arse by moving them back. Maybe but like you said, when the dice are screwing you over, it's hard not to be tilted, and it's hard to make those quality decisions when you're feeling under the pump and everything's going against you.
Well,
So
it's biological, right?
yeah, yeah,
When you're stressed, sorry, not your frontal cortex turns off, so and that's where your key analytical and decision making comes from, right? So when that's off, actually
yeah,
not
yeah.
you're not going to
It's
make the right
super tough.
decision.
It's super tough. So look, I think it was not. I don't think it was the game that we wanted people to see, right? Like we wanted to give people like a close struggle, and a tough game that came down to the wire kind of thing. And I think the dice kind of conspired against us, and then naturally that promotes a little bit of frustration, and then it's hard to come back from that. But
I think the squads
yeah, and
didn't
that was the other
help
thing,
very
right? Like
well.
we basically, not on purpose, but we screwed you basically. We set you up for a fall, and we did it together, which kind of sucks. And I think partly we didn't have that foresight, right? Like we were kind of going, what's going to be cool, what's going to be entertaining, and we thought let's throw Gideon on the table as because he's just released and it might be entertaining, and not necessarily think about, well, what's that squad going to, how's that squad going to play, or how's that team going to play into the other team. And yeah, it wasn't fun.
Oh well, now we know. Now we
Now we
know.
know. That's right. Next time we have a MandoBowl, we'll have
Oh,
something
look, there
better.
probably won't be one for a very long time, I imagine.
Hey, we could do one. We could do one every month if we wanted. Patreon exclusive, pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view. That's right. That's precisely pay-per-view. MandoBowl. I don't think it's as exciting when there's nothing at stake
Nothing
though.
on.
Like that.
We can
Like
make
this was
stuff on the
for a
line.
position. Like this is for your ticket into the next stage of the finals, right? So
That's true. There was, and I think that's part of it. That made it harder as well, right? Because there was something on the line. So then there's a bit of stress associated with that as well.
yeah, it was big.
Cool. All right. So anything more to say on the MandoBowl? Anything else we want to break down about the MandoBowl?
I don't really think there's much more than that. I think it was over. Yeah, it was pretty quick. It was pretty much a one struggle game.
Yeah, the second struggle
Uh,
didn't take many activations.
I think
Um,
two because I think I scored
no,
one.
three, I
Yeah,
think. Maybe three.
Mm, I thought it was just two. I think I went with a severely wounded, strained Pons, and then I drew the commandos who sat on the back point, and then Vader just one shot them.
I think you did
And then
Rex
one.
as well.
Oh, that's right. I did do. You're right. Sorry, my
Yeah.
bad. Three. Yeah, and Rex again. I had to go for a Hail Mary and completely whiffed. He needed um a little bit more than what he got, but
Yeah.
that's
It
the
was
game.
tough. It was tough. It was tough. All right. Good stuff. Okay. Shall we move on to our final segment?
Yeah. Well, yes. I think there's two
Is there two?
final
Two
segments.
cards left? Look, I've miscounted.
So there are two cards left. You forgot to put your
I forgot to put my
you probably
Shadow
forgot
Point card in.
in the deck. Did you? Which is your final segment? And we'll do that one
Well,
first.
no, yeah, no, that's true. And I think this one was no. You're right. I've now found the card, and I'm going to shuffle
Oh
it in.
yeah.
I'm going to
All right.
shuffle it in.
So,
All right. So what we wanted to talk about is, I guess, a strategy thing, and I think this is an interesting one, which is back point holders.
yeah.
All right. So obviously, when you deploy, you basically deploy so that you get the two closest, or the one if it's shifting priorities. But I almost don't want to talk about shifting priorities because I think it's a bad mission. But
No, let's forget about it.
yeah, so you get the two rear points, and you just deploy so that you've got at least one. If you're going second, at least one character within two. If you're going first, ideally you have two units within two of those points,
Yeah.
because you don't know who you're going to draw. So those points become yours at the end of the first turn, right? And then I guess the question here is, well, what do you do at that point? Because if you only hold those rear points, you lose, right? You have to move forward to win. But some people will do, and I guess I noticed this in the game that I played against Desert Spiral, which is he moved his arse onto the rear 2 points, which kind of makes sense for arfs. They're within range 5 of then all the middle points, so they can throw out expose. But he's not actually flipping. He's not changing the board state by doing that. All right, because he's not getting any extra points. So I guess this is the question that we have that, and we're trying to work through as well, is does it make sense to keep at any point in the first struggle, in your first draw, to keep people back? Because I did play another game in person it's a few weeks back now, where I played against somebody and their strategy, and I think they were saying it's basically from Legion, right? So they play Star Wars Legion as well, where they don't want to throw their models forward, right? And I think I don't know anything about Legion, but I've watched one game, and it was because you've got a lot of units and they all get a go in the turn, right? And you're not scoring necessarily. I think you're not necessarily scoring after each unit activates. You score at the end of the turn. So what they want to do is they kind of want to like edge up to a little bit, get the engagement range just right for their units, and then have a good activation. Which a good activation might be, I'm in my perfect range or in your bad range. I don't have a lot. You don't have a lot of cover, and I can shoot you or whatever. But in Shatterpoint, he kind of, I think, tried to apply that same approach where he's like, I'm going to move up slowly. And I'm like, cool, I'll just take both those points.
Yeah, that's what you want.
All right. And so it was like, he just, like, I don't think it wasn't like a conscious decision. It was more like because he's coming at it from a different angle and he's, I'm sure, way more experienced at playing Legion than he is at Shatterpoint. The approach that he took was, I'm gonna just slow play and sort of move up, make sure I've got my back points or whatever. All that meant was I win struggle one. And as you alluded to when you were talking about the advice from Jeff, you have to win struggle one no matter what, because you win struggle one, you're 66% chance to win the whole game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your opinion? Would you do this where you have like effectively a dead activation where you're not flipping a point because you want to hold somebody back?
Well, it's I'd say it's niche. If, for instance, you hold, I don't know, let's say I'm don't have my right point, the right midpoint, but I have the left one, and I pull a unit who's on the left, and I've already got that left one. Let's say it's the arfs. Yeah, I don't mind holding them back and just putting them on either side of the board, but on the back points, just to use the expose. But if I'm activating first, or if there is an opportunity for me to take those, either of those side points, you have to take it, I think. And it puts, not only do you take it and you score, but it actually puts pressure on your opponent then to move and take it. So they're getting less than ideal, perhaps, for them activations. I think a really good backpoint holder is Commander Cody. I've actually been thinking of ways to make him work, and I think backpoint holder is probably his best spot. So my idea for Cody is, if you're running him in a Republic squad, you want to run him with the opposite secondary needs to be probably Pons or Rex, right? Depending on who else you're bringing. So if you're bringing Mace, Pons, and when Pons or Rex, or let's say Mace, or or Padawan Ahsoka even, I forgot about her. Actually, no, she can't do it. But when one of those characters get their activation, you want to kind of hold off on using Cody until he's able to move. So you move him with the dash that he gets from one of their things, and he can sit in front of that back point, but he has range 5 on the midpoint on his side. So he's able to get off his expose, and he'll be able to get a focus and do a huge shot, and perhaps get a so he can expose a unit and then use the arfs to expose who he shoots at, for instance. So I think if you're looking at back point holders, Cody, if you formulate your squad for him, the thing is you have to formulate your squad for him and use some of the things you might want to use on other characters on him. But if that's the style of game you want to play, perhaps look at Cody.
Yeah, no, I think look that is good. Like when I haven't, to be honest, I haven't put Cody on the table in months, right? Like I don't know.
Same.
Yeah, like it's-
In about 7 months since the game's come out, because I
yeah,
realized how
almost
shitty it
since
was
the
straight
game come out.
away.
I mean, I painted him up pretty quickly because I was like, yeah, Obi-Wan box, everyone's awesome. And so I painted him up and I used him a couple of times and I'm like, very quickly you realize how awkward he is because he wants to focus to get 9 dice. Um, but then you kind of stuffed. So yeah, like you do have to, yeah, if you're going to use Cody, you have to use somebody else. You have to put somebody else's resources into Cody to get value out of him, and I agree. But I think that is a great point that you made earlier, which is if you can't win one of the points, that's a time when you might consider consolidating your rear points.
Yeah. Usually Pons is that character for me. If Pons can make if Mace has already moved on to side objective, and Pons is drawn after Mace, I either use Pons to go sit with Mace to put two bodies on the point, but if like my ARFs are on the point with Mace anyway, then Pons just hunkers forward also and takes a shot if he can, or moves forward and takes a shot if he can. I don't really want to be throwing him about the board because he does die pretty quick and he doesn't really add anything to a point. Like
Hey,
he's
he
he's
he
not doing
adds
a whole lot.
immunity to expose.
He does. It doesn't come up
It
super often. You have to have a hunker at that point. There's a whole lot of conditionals that
it
go with
only
that.
really comes up against mirror matches
Republic, yeah,
against
mirror
Republic,
matches.
right? So it's tough. But I think, yeah, again, a good point. And look, why would you want to do that? Because you have units like um, you know what, like you have any fast unit, right? So you've got Ahsoka Tano, Jedi No More, you've got Asajj Ventress, you've got Padawan Ahsoka, you've got Barriss, like so many units that can move really fast. They can go and take one of those rear points off you. So
That's right.
if you've not kept anybody on there, you're potentially looking at a crap. They're scoring 5 this turn or 4 this turn, and next turn I've only got 2, right? So and now I have to move a model backwards, right? So that's why potentially you want to um, keep somebody back there. But I think probably the key things I think if we distill down our thoughts about this, and I'd say they're pretty kind of, I don't want to sound too arrogant, but I think like these are probably the things that you want to really consider is if you can change the score state, right? So like if you can flip an objective to your side, it's probably worth moving off a rear objective unless you know for sure you're going to lose it, right? Like if you're like I've used everybody over on that side, and if I move this model off, I lose this objective because they've still got somebody who can get to it. Then you might want to consider keeping one person on there. The thing though also to consider is they may just die anyway, right? Like you may have somebody on there and they may
Yeah.
just die anyway. So sometimes it's better to just go, look, I'm gonna go and overwhelm this point over here. Um, you know, I'll move off it even though I'm going to lose. But yeah, so I think the key things as what I'm not distilling this very well because that's the quality that you get out of Red Mandos. But basically, if you can change, if you can flip a point, move your models off. If you can't flip a point, consider what your model brings, right? So obviously, any model that has coordinated fire can bring a lot from range 5 or 4, depending upon what type of model it is. So if
Yeah.
they are, as with Commander Cody, they're potentially good models to have on your rear points to hold those from, your quick moving, advancing opponent's model. And they can still contribute through that coordinated fire. So they're good ones to put on there. Ideally, you don't put, you know, like Obi-Wan Obi-Wan or Obi-Wan, either of them on those rear points, because I did have to do it in my game against Desert Spiral. But like, because if you do that, they don't have a ranged attack, so sometimes they just can't contribute anymore. Um, and the final thing that I would say is, if you're planning for struggle 2 or struggle 3, that's when you may want to consider moving back onto those points, because those points could become active.
That's right. Yeah, there are considerations obviously you need to make when looking at back points. But I think the most important thing is if your opponent has someone that can move to your back point on that side of the board, maybe consider holding off, but only if you are not guaranteed to flip a point that you can. Because if you can flip a point, number one, you swing the game state in your favor, but then you obviously need to then you're putting pressure on somebody. So if they don't have one of those fast characters, I don't think you're actually at a deficit moving off a back point.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think what we started this segment with was, you won't win by holding your back points, right?
No.
You can't win unless you're moving on to either your opponent's points or uncontested points, right? You have to move forward.
And
So
generally, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, go.
I was just saying, generally, if they're moving on to your back point, they've left their back point free. So
Exactly.
your next activation, if you're all in the middle, you just move on to their back point. Like it swings both ways.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing that I will consider is, if you are coming up against models that have Inquisitorial Mandate, again, bit of a theme
Big
for this
problem.
episode,
Big problem.
just bugger it off. One model on that point is not going to hold it, so just run away.
Yeah, I think I am gonna need to look at some more diceless displacement in this upcoming meta.
That's fair. All right, anything more on backpoint holders?
Cody, use him.
Yeah,
Tell me
yeah,
how he goes.
yeah. Cody, give him a go. You're right. You do have to invest into him, so you're going to have somebody else who can move him.
I actually have been thinking about it because I know.
Hans, Mace, Rex, somebody.
Yeah, you're gonna need to, oh, even what's his name? The new guy just come out,
Padme,
Plo.
Padme can do it.
Padme, yeah, Plo can do it.
Yeah.
There's a few. Um, I've been thinking about Cody because I know that there's a upcoming, perhaps it's whispered, it's in the works,
I love
some
it.
sort of league to use these underused characters. I'm gonna call them underused characters.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
good. That's good.
and so I
Yeah, yeah.
think,
That's
I mean,
something
poor
that
old
we're
Cody.
yeah, that's something that the Red Mandos are considering, running a league where you get assigned a character which is underused, and you have to use it for every game of that league, except when you lose or when you win, we haven't decided yet. You get the opportunity to swap your underused character with your
Yeah,
opponent's underused character. So if you
that's right.
maybe if you lose, you can swap underused characters. Or
I
maybe
think
if you
lose.
win, yeah, maybe lose is probably better. You can potentially swap. And
Yeah,
it's just to force people to have a think about, look, is there a way that you can use units that everybody says are garbage?
garbage. Yeah, Reaver.
Because yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe Reaver is just garbage. I'm not sure how you get a lot of value out of her, but potentially Reaver, not fantastic. Cody, not fantastic. Aura Singh, not fantastic.
It costs too much. That's her problem. She's a
Yeah,
4 cost in a 5 cost body.
that's true. 5-0 first.
They're not bad. They're just. I mean,
Oh,
they don't do any like they don't do anything really important on their activation apart from taking points. Like they're not shooting, but offering a strain, I think, is
yeah,
good. They're
strain, coordinated fire strain is good. It
they're
is good.
3 points. They do whatever the other clones do. They throw 7 dice, which is better than those 2 12s.
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
So
but so
roll
that's
7 crits. That's all you need to do. Roll seven
that's
crits.
it. So just roll better. Look, so that's something that we're considering running. So if you want to get involved in this, like, obviously it's a bit of fun, and that's kind of the theme. Bit random, something that's a bit of fun. Definitely join the Discord so that you can be involved. We've got a few people join, so that's great. But yeah, there'll be links to the Discord either in the show notes or in the um, the description for the podcast.
Yeah, there definitely will be. I think we have just one final segment now.
One final card
And
to flip. One
one
final card to flip.
that's it. This is the last draw. Hopefully we can win the game on this last draw. This is one that you named, so I'll let you introduce it.
Because we weren't sure what to name this segment. Like, obviously, are we straying into quality here by having segments that we name? I
Not
don't
if we
think so.
name
I
them
think it's
not if we name them so confusing that people won't
that's
even
it.
understand it.
That's
Yeah.
it. So what we're calling this is we're calling it the hand shot first segment. So why we're calling it that, sorry, is cause these are rules that when you initially look at them, you think that they work one way, but then you talk to people and then you find out they work a different way. And it's kind of like Han shot first, right? You're like, no, Han did shoot first. And then now you go back and you try and watch Star Wars anywhere, and unless you have an old VHS or a Laserdisc or a rip from VHS or Laserdisc, Han didn't shoot first. You know, it's been retconned. It
That's right.
doesn't
And if
work
you've
the way that you thought it'd work.
thanks. If you've got one of those old VHS, let me know
Yeah.
because I want to see Han shoot first. That's what I want.
Awesome. So, because it's a bit of a theme for tonight's, we're recording at night. You could be listening to this at any time of the day. For
Pause
this,
the podcast, wait till nighttime, and listen
you
to this
can't
segment.
complete. Yeah.
Nah.
So, a bit of a theme for this episode is characters with inquisitorial mandate or something equivalent. So, Moff Gideon's isn't called that; it's called "You Have Something That I Want." And the way that that ability works is so when you determine control of an active objective, a character that has either "You Have Something I Want" or inquisitorial mandate, if they're contesting that active objective, and if there is a tie for characters that are contesting that objective, this unit's controlling player takes control of the objective. So, how that works in practice, there's a few things. But if you had one normal character and one character with inquisitorial mandate, the character that has inquisitorial mandate, they get control of that objective. Regardless of who controlled it before that, they get control of it. So that allows you to flip the objective from your opponent to you with just having one character with inquisitorial mandate on there. Another slightly weird thing with this is that so normally what happens is if you had, say, an objective that is at an elevation, if you had two characters that were on that elevation, it wouldn't matter. You wouldn't count any other character at any other elevation, right? Because it's just the two that are at the elevation of the objective.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with inquisitorial mandate, because they're still contesting that objective, it still turns on. So you could have two characters, one from each side, up on the objective, and then you could bring an inquisitorial mandate, or You Have Something I Want, so Moff Gideon or inquisitorial mandate character on at any elevation, and they will flip it to their control. Excuse me. All right, so the weirdest one, and this is the one that we wanted to focus on, is what happens when you have a tie and both sides have characters with inquisitorial mandate. Red Mando 1.
Yeah.
What happens?
So if I have fifth brother and
Yes.
I'm on a point, and you have fifth brother and you're on the same point, and it's my active turn, when I go to score the objective, I claim it because I win the tie. But then you, as the passive, I'm going to say passive character, or the passive player, so I activate my abilities first, and then you activate your abilities. So I claim it, and then you claim it back, which means nobody scores it.
That's right. And when it's my turn, and if nothing has changed, because I'm the active player now, I claim it first, and then you're the passive player, the player whose turn it is not. Your abilities then trigger after mine, and you claim it back. So we will never score. Neither of us are going to score that point until something changes.
If every character is wounded, if every single character is wounded, and you just have two fifth brothers, the game could go forever.
That's true. It could. It could
I
go
mean,
forever.
not just wounded, like pulled off the table. Like,
Yeah. It could. It could go. Literally, could just go forever. But I presume at some point, one of the fifth brothers is going to wound the other fifth brother.
yeah, you'd think so. You would
You
think,
would. Yeah. You would
unless they're just
expect that to happen.
nice, unless they just don't want to fight.
That's true. That's true. They just go, I hunker.
Yeah, that's it.
Or
Love, love the hunter.
I recover and dash.
What they want to do. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our first hand shot first segment. Just I guess a rule that because a lot of people probably go, yeah, I've got inquisitorial mandate, it's my turn, I should win that point. And then yeah, sure, you win it back on your point, on your turn. But it actually works the opposite way, where your opponent wins it on your turn if there's two that have inquisitorial mandate.
Yeah, it doesn't work the way most people probably think it does.
That's it.
So I think that's all of our cards through the deck. Is there anything we wanted to say before we signed off?
There is.
All right, hit me.
I wanted to say that there is an upcoming event at the Combat Company where you'll be able to see hopefully both of the Mandos. It's on the 16th of March. The details are in the Shatterpoint Australia Discord. So you
Yeah,
can
we
check
hope
it
to
out
see you
there.
there.
Yeah,
That's
for
right.
sure. I know that there are some other events coming up. Let me see if I can find them very quickly. Yes. So Kildare. So he was one of the players that we met at CanCon. So there is an event in Queensland that he's running. It's on the 24th. Again, the details. Shatterpoint Australia Discord. Just go there. That's where you'll find everything.
That's it.
Uh,
And
and there
you
is
can obviously
actually, if we get this out quickly, there is one on the 9th of March in Victoria.
yeah, this will be out by then.
Yeah, sweet, awesome.
No one's from Victoria is probably listening to us, but that's okay.
Awesome. Anything
Yeah,
else?
screaming into the wind. No, I would just say make sure at the beginning and the end of the beginning of the game and at the end of each of your activations, make sure you're on the right side of your stance card. That's something that always catches me out.
Yeah, I think beginning of the game, right? Because we had that.
TTS, particularly in TTS at the beginning of the game, just make
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Just make.
PTS because it'll put it on one without you paying attention to it.
That's right. That's right. So just keep your stance cards in the right spot, and yeah, make sure you roll better than I do.
That's it. This is the
That's
way,
it.
man. This is the
This
way.
is the way.
Just roll crits. This is
Roll
the
crit.
way.
This is the way.
Red Mando 1, thank you very much. It's been a blast.
As always.
Can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, no, for sure. We'll definitely get that out to you guys as soon as possible.
All right. Have fun, everyone. Enjoy Shatterpoint. Paint some minis. This is the way.
This is the way. How do I stop recording? Where are they? Oh, they're in there. They're in the admin chat. Oh, there they are. Okay.